I was like, imagine if my new band just like sucked, and like all these bands that I work with, I feel like it would be this subconscious thing. Like, so you're the one like, leading this ship, but your band is garbage.
What up? It's Errol from Rot, and this is the Scoped Exposure Podcast.
Awesome. You got your bev, I'm hoping?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Great
Coming
stuff.
back.
Awesome. Well, I'm ready to go. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. This is another episode of the Scoped Exposure Podcast. Today, we traveled down to North Carolina, and we're chatting with James, who does vocals for Ends of Sanity, if I'm guessing that correctly.
Yep.
Yeah. And you also are working for and doing some stuff with Good Fight and State of Mind, which I was surprised by when, originally you just reached out to me as far as the band was concerned. I was like, oh, this guy is doing a lot. So I really appreciate you giving me some of your time and coming on the podcast, man.
Dude, yeah, I'm stoked to be here. I appreciate you having me.
Of course. For if I hit on anything incorrectly, can you just give a proper introduction as far as what you do at Good Fight and State of Mind, and tell me about the band as well?
Yeah, cool. So I manage artists at Good Fight, Good Fight Management. There's Good Fight the label, and then Good Fight Management. And I book tours over at State of Mind, which sounds really funny right now, considering, haven't done that in about a year. It's probably going to be another year before I do that again. And then, I've always played in bands. I kind of fell into that kind of stuff, but, as of, I think 2.5 weeks ago, singing in Ends of Sanity.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned.
Yeah. And the recent EP that you guys did fell on my radar. I'm trying to remember. I'm always on the hunt. So any Instagram story share of an album that I don't know, I'll always at least go and see, is that a new release? Is that something old? And I was honestly like really blown away. It's very early in the year, but I know that's within my top 10 EPs easily.
Wow, thank you.
So yeah, definitely want to chat about that band. Would love to chat about some of the other stuff with Good Fight. But before we get into the meat of the conversation, I got to do the bev check of the episode. So I'm trying to have a streak for season 2 to have my guests go first with anything. I feel like that's the polite and appropriate thing to do. So tell the folks at home what you're going to be sipping on.
Cool. Well, I'm not a coffee guy, but I have this juice that looks like shit, but it's fresh juice, apple, cucumber, ginger, and lemon, and it's kind of how I justify eating terribly, because I'm like, if I have juices or smoothies, which I do very often, it makes me feel better about my other poor diet decisions.
Yeah. That's fair. I know there's a plethora of juices that lean more on the fruity or sugary side, but then there's the juices that are just essentially made to just clean out your system, as you were mentioning.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Is that from someone? I do this pretty often.
Is that from someone local, or do you make that yourself?
I have a juicer. I didn't make this myself. It's this place literally across the street called Clean Juice. I think it's a chain.
Oh, okay.
But I have an account with them, and I could just like put it on my phone and pick it up, and it's the simplest thing I could do. It's very bougie, but it works, and it's a lot less time consuming than making my own.
Yeah. Like I can't even remember what birthday it was, but I got a juicer. I think this was in the midst of like finding out that I had Crohn's disease, so they weren't really sure. So it was just like just drink juice, I guess. And the time it takes to get like carrots into juice form is so time consuming. Plus, like the cleanup of that machine is astronomical.
Yeah, it's rough.
It's rough. So I'd rather just
does
pay
it
the
help?
$8.
My mom has Crohn's disease, and I've been telling her to get on the juice, and she's been apprehensive. But has it worked for you?
Well, to be honest, like I think that I'm I prioritize like efficiency so much. So like I didn't give it a true like run of like, 6 months or a year. It was like a couple months of
Gotcha.
like, I can't do this. I think I found other ways of like, you know, I like Crohn's is, a totally separate thing, but it's very different person to person, as I'm sure you know. Um, but
Yeah.
I've found different remedies and different things that work for me. Juice is not up there. To me, I'm big on the bevs, but I don't. Uh, Juice isn't one of the first things that I try to stock up in the fridge. So I probably can't answer that as best as maybe you were kind of curious on.
Oh, it's all good. I was just wondering because I'm always telling my mom to do it, and she's always said no. But if you were like, it's helped, I'd be like, hey, mom,
Yeah,
this
guy said it.
works. So, but
yeah, I think overall juice is just like people should drink that more. It's packed, especially the types of juices that you were saying. Like they don't maybe look or taste the best, but it's way better than drinking Coca-Cola.
it does the job.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do a lot of that, but I like to do this too.
Yeah, I think everyone needs to have their one little bougie thing, whether it's crazy shoes or crazy juices. So I'm drinking.
Yep.
You're actually my second podcast of the day. When I was like, I need a few minutes, it was mainly like I need to put on a different shirt to make it look like it's a different day. So
Gotcha.
I had a coffee related bev. So this is more of just the zeroed out sparkling water that is just gonna doing this. I think I'm getting stuck on here. Oh, here we go. I was like, what is happening? I was getting pulled down. So yeah, it's a peach honey, which is my favorite flavor from Aha.
Sounds great.
Yeah, it's honestly like I don't know any other sparkling water companies that have something with honey. So
Is it honey or honey flavor?
It says no sweeteners, so I think it's just honey.
Oh wow, that's cool. I actually try and drink sparkling water a lot when I'm consuming too much ginger ale because I'm mildly addicted to ginger ale. I'll try and like ease off and hit some sparkling water, but it doesn't usually stick too long.
Yeah. I have many friends who listen to this podcast who are like, do not fuck with sparkling water to any degree, but they love ginger ale and all those kind of things. So it's to each their own.
It's good shit.
Yeah. So James, super excited to have you on the podcast. I don't know if you were able to listen to some episodes prior to doing this recording, but normally with any new guest, I try to just get context on how they got into heavy music. So take us back in time. Tell us some of the formative records and moments for you hearing, like guitar music, if you want to call it that, and how that puts you on the path that you're on.
For sure. So definitely it's all because of my dad. I grew up with Ozzy and Sabbath. Basically growing up from as long as I can remember was Ozzy, Sabbath, Elvis, and Led Zeppelin. And I hated all of it because I was a little kid and it was just being forced on me at such an early age. And I just didn't understand it. And then I kind of started to warm up to like Black Sabbath and stuff. Elvis took me a long time, but Black Sabbath and Ozzy were definitely the first that I kind of started taking some notes with. And then my brother is 2 years older than me. I have two brothers, but my brother Paul, he's 2 years older. He kind of took on to the heavy stuff and kind of started figuring stuff out on his own. And I kind of just piggybacked with him, like I remember one day he came into my room with a Pantera CD and he got me into like Pantera and Life of Agony and Typo Negative. And but I can remember being in like fourth grade wearing like the jelly bracelets that they sold at Hot Topic like System of a Down t-shirts and Sabbath and stuff. So I definitely got into the metal pretty early on because of my dad and my brother.
Mm-hmm.
And then the hardcore stuff didn't really happen until about 2008. I accidentally went to my first hardcore show.
Accidentally.
Yeah, like I had friends that were going and I didn't really have any interest in going, but it was like live music and you know, I was just good friends with them and it was just kind of becoming something that I was around.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So, and that was Ruiner, This Is Hell, Stray from the Path, and Elysia. I don't know which
Elijah?
one and how you say it. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how to say it. But that was my first show, and then it was it wasn't like a lot of people I feel like have these stories of like I went to this first show and it was amazing and it changed my life. It was totally not that. It actually turned me off. Like I remember one of my friends was like sitting outside and like busted his lip open and like somebody called an ambulance for him and there was just lots of uh, chaos and not that I hated it. I was just kind of like confused. Like I remember the band This Is Hell. It was their record release. They didn't even get to play. So it was just a big shit show.
Why did they not get to play?
Just because the show got so crazy and it got shut down.
I see.
Yeah, I think there was like too many people. It was definitely in like this was like Long Island's prime time from what I've been told. I mean, like I said, I only started going around like 2008, but there was a lot of fucking people there. And then one of my friends who actually now plays in Rule Them All and started my first band with me. He had a band going with some people and he had asked me if I wanted to sing in the band and he was like, it's a hardcore band. And I was like, I don't fucking know anything about hardcore. And he gave me a Have Heart song and a Trapped in Rice song and like threw me in a closet, like a DIY vocal booth. And he's like, sing these songs. So I tried singing like a song by Trapped in Rice and a song off of Have Heart's Songs to Scream at the Sun. And that band, we were called Scourge. I was like 16 years old. Through that band, I found out a lot about hardcore because it pretty much every time they'd be like, check out this song, it'd be like Hatebreed or Marauder, Integrity and stuff like that. So that was definitely
they're throwing you in the closet. They're like, do your homework, go learn some shit. And that just naturally
on the spot though. Yeah, on the spot because I was just like, I don't know anything about this. And they're like, well, check these songs out and then try and sing them. And
that's funny.
Yeah,
really throwing you straight into the trenches with those kind of things.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy they did because that certainly changed my life. But I just always hear people a lot about like, you know, so I guess in a way, those two bands did kind of, you know, put me into this, but I'd be lying if I said I listened to Have Heart now, like at all, really. But at the time they were a great band. Just, you know, it was like a time and place thing. Like I remember when I was 16, 17, I couldn't fucking believe it. And I'd love to see them now, but it's not something I'm still listening to regularly.
Yeah. Well, it is, you know, you're not the only one to their first hardcore experience wasn't this romanticized thing where it's like, you know, so like becoming so infatuated with it. Like there had been multiple times where people have come on and they're like, yeah, my first hardcore show was not sick. And it put me off to not wanting to be involved in it until later in life. And again, like you said, sometimes it is such a time and place thing where you do need to, it's like very serendipitous to like, you go to the one show and this band is playing and so says this, and then that's the moment. So.
Yeah. I just didn't fucking get it, honestly. Like previously, the only thing I had seen live was like Black Sabbath, Judas Priest, Motorhead, Testament. It was my first show ever. So seeing that, I was just like, what the fuck is going on here? You know? But I mean, now in hindsight, it's just something I can laugh about and it makes total sense. But as a 15-year-old kid, definitely very confusing.
Right. To jump into the next portion. So, you're fronting a band called Ends of Sanity. You guys just put out an EP, just just like I want to say a few weeks from recording this podcast at least. And yeah, like tell me about how that band came together. There's like members of other bands that I had seen in the initial announcement. Just tell me about yeah, like how that came to be, because I think right now with lack of touring, bands are starting to either write for later releases or just start brand new bands just to kind of keep the ball rolling. So tell me some of the things of the new project.
Yeah. So basically the last almost 4 years have been strictly just working with other bands. My old band had split up pretty much as soon as I found out I was going to be a dad. I kind of wrapped up. We did like a last tour and stuff. So I've just kind of been feeling like I wasn't, getting my fix, so to speak, for a while, but I never really did anything about it. And then once the pandemic started, I, started getting unemployment, and I had pretty much no work to do. And I had started kind of just messing around, making songs by myself. Like I'd write a riff, I'd put some drums over it. And then a buddy of mine, Garrett, who plays guitar, him and I were jamming on like some metal stuff, and it just wasn't really like doing it for us. And then one day we were both just like, you want to just make a band that like could be like good gym music? And so me and him basically for the next few months just started writing stuff like that. We would pretty much flesh out everything and then take it to the other guys. But then I wish it was a cooler story, but I basically was just like, here's exactly who I want in this band, because they're all some of my best friends and they all live in this state except for one of them. So yeah, me and Garrett pretty much wrote everything. And then when we recorded it, was the only time we've still not all been in the same room together. So, but when we went to record it, the rest of the guys kind of put in, a little bit of their input. But yeah, it was literally just me and Garrett writing songs, and then I had hit up the rest of the guys, which were Ian. He played in Dwell. He also played in my old band before we stopped. And then Cameron, who plays in Magnitude, and then Ridge from Last Question. I had just basically hit them all up individually and just been like, showed them like, skeletons and been like, hey, I'm working on this band. I want you in it. And they were just like, okay, cool, let's do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, I think a lot of the songs like really, it's always crazy when people are starting bands. Like, I feel like any new band that you do over your time in this space, like it always gets better because there's more like things that have been ironed out when you do like your first band, your second band, of like, we think this is cool, and then it's like really, really corny, and then just over time it's like just the songwriting becomes better, the presentation of the album or the EP gets better. So it seemed like a lot. It just hits so hard right away because there was so many years prior to that, versus like, hey, we're a new band, we're all still in high school. Like some of those things need to be, and I think that's very sick if you're like 17, 18 years old and you're doing your first band. If anything, there's a lot of bands that are coming out at that age that are making better music than I was at that age, and and just there's just more knowledge. But yeah, I think that there was a lot of well-earned stripes from yourself and a lot of the other members, it sounds like.
Oh, I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, it definitely was. I was kind of joking, and I was like talking to some of the bands that I work with, and I was like, there was definitely a little more like pressure because my day-to-day job is not obviously not telling anybody how to do something, but helping bands, reach their goals and say this is cool or this is not cool. And I was like, imagine if my new band just like sucked, and like all these bands that I work with, I feel like it would be this subconscious thing. Like, so you're the one like, leading this ship, but your band is garbage, So like, I was definitely afraid that some people wouldn't like it. So I think there was a little bit of fuel there that I was like, I really got to make sure this is like
sure
the best thing I've done. And and I think it is. So I'm stoked on how it came out. So I'm stoked that you like it too.
Yeah. Speaking of some of those things, like there's definitely a number of like the entire EP is like less than 10 minutes. It's like maybe 5, 6, if that. But I feel like there's a lot of aspects that are really like tightly packaged into that. Specifically, like there's a lot of different like guest vocalists on that. I think Michael from Pain of Truth said he was on a track. For a while, I thought Drew from Straight from the Path was on it, but then listening to it a couple times, I'm like, oh, I think that's actually Sammy from Drain. Can you like clarify any of those if I'm totally off base?
Yeah, no, you got them. So yeah, the first one and the first song is Michael from Hangman, Pain of Truth.
Yeah.
And then the second one is Sammy from Drain. And then the last one at the very last song, the last like 15 seconds is Joe from Advent and Beloved.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that was one I was like I just wasn't 100% sure, but now that makes sense. I got to see Advent, like they were at the last festival I went to, which was Snow and Flurry. So yeah, that's very sick.
Oh, awesome.
Tell me about just like the opening track has that famous Rocky Balboa quote. And that really, like, at least for me, it kind of like sets the tone of like the rest of the EP. And I've heard that it's funny because I've heard that sample on like a couple other like hardcore releases, whether it's like shorter or longer. But I felt like that one for you guys just made it just tied in with everything else so well. So can you talk to me about just like the tone of the record and some of the lyrical directions?
Yeah, for sure. Well, Rocky's always been one of like just the series, probably like top 3 favorite of all time. I mean, I'm very big on like fitness and, I'm rooting for the underdog always. Sure. And, working on yourself and, mind and body, all that type of stuff. And the EP is all about, the EP is all about just, dealing with shit, but not being stuck in the corner and complaining about it, which is something I've done pretty much my whole life up until the few recent years, and actually learning to take, bad stuff and be like, okay, what am I gaining from this? What am I learning from this? What is this teaching me? Mm-hmm. And I'm happy you said that, because that was the whole idea. Like I wanted it to be, I wanted people to be like, oh man, what am I in for? Like I'm feeling fucking pumped up, like right. That's because I feel like for me getting into hardcore and even metal, like I've always resonated more with positive, heavy stuff. Mm-hmm. Like the negative stuff's great. And I'll always love that too. We all need to hear some depressing shit every now and again, but especially with what was going on the past year, sure, it was definitely. Like, man, yeah. I want to write something that I can listen back to and like motivate my fucking self, Yeah. So I just thought, who better to introduce that than fucking Rocky Balboa?
Right.
So
no,
that's and I've been huge into like Goggins lately, and so some of the other guys. I don't know if you're familiar with David Goggins.
No, I'm not. But
he actually Okay, he's incredible. He's a Navy veteran. He's a SEAL vet. He's the only person to ever do like SEALs training twice consecutively.
Oh, okay.
He's like coined the toughest man in the world. He's fucking hysterical sure. too. You should look him up on Instagram.
How do you pronounce his name for the folks at home who are jotting down notes? Because there are people.
David Goggins.
Okay, David Goggins.
David Goggins.
Okay.
Yeah, he's a maniac. He's like real life Rocky Balboa. I mean, he's got books out. I'm sure they'll make a movie on him one day. But he's reading his books, which I've been doing a lot of reading since the pandemic. He really has been helping me, get through some stuff. Like he coined the term "taking souls." He says like that first track called "Taking Souls" is David Goggins says, like when he was in SEAL training, he would there was a look in his face that
when you're just really going through shit and you're showing somebody that it's not phasing you. He says that that's taking somebody's souls. Like you can just look at them.
I
And
see.
yeah, so there's definitely a few odes to him across the EP, which at first I was like kind of thinking about it in a humorous way, but as I started working on it, I was like, this isn't funny, really. It's just fucking badass. So I rolled with it.
And correct me if I'm wrong, that's the only song off the EP that isn't like it's not named after a lyric. If I'm putting that together correctly.
Yeah, I guess it isn't. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. This is all ends of sanity quizzing for me.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't even realize that, but yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So yeah, talking about and I do want to like echo what you said. I think getting into harder music, more DIY music, I think I started with a lot more positive natured stuff. A big band for me growing up was a band called Means from up here in Canada. They were on Face Down for a number of years, but they had a record called Sending You Strength, and there was like gang vocals of all these people just like talking about just like trying to empower one another and empower yourself and all those things. And I think a lot of that is a huge aspect of hardcore where it latches on with people. Of course, there's going to be like, political stuff that is very ingrained in hardcore culture, but I think self-reflection and self-betterment is like a close second to that as well. Do you feel like there's definitely been a lot of trends in heavy music, and I'm sure you've seen a lot of this with some of the bands that you've been working with. Do you think that, not positive hardcore, but positive natured heavy music is not as sought after? Because there's definitely been a lot of bands in the last little while that have been like, here are 5 diss tracks essentially on like, posers and hardcore. But what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I mean, one of the big motivators for me to want to do it was it was, just special to me and real to me. It was what I was feeling, but B, I haven't seen or heard rather bands really doing that as of recently. And I think a lot of bands that do it get a bad rep that it's cheesy. And I'm sure people might hear this band and think that it's cheesy, and that's fine. But for me, I kind of wanted to make a band that, especially lyrically, like just breaks the stigma of like, oh, this isn't cheesy. Like a lot of bands that have tried to do this may have been like, everyone says, I love Hatebreed. I'll listen to any record they've ever put out. Sure. But a lot of people say, which I don't disagree with, a lot of stuff, especially after like Rise of Brutality, it's like too cheesy,
Yeah.
So a lot of people have been telling me they felt like it was like the record that should have came after, that era of Hatebreed, which I would never agree with a compliment that big because I just don't think it's deserving. But that was the goal, it was like to take that sort of vibe, but make it more personal that people could really resonate with. I'm not talking about saving the world. I'm just talking about like looking inside yourself and like, pushing on a little bit further than you may have thought you could, so to speak.
Yeah, no, I think it is really cool. And, I think heavy music in general needs to have variety, where you can have the bands that are just like, like Sanction, who are just like kill each other in the pit. And then there's like, bands that are kind of in the mix of that, where it could be more like just straight political discussions. And then there's bands that are talking about like, positive nature stuff. And like, you need to have different levels of that, because if it's only one thing, then it's going to get stale, and then no one's going to enjoy the music genre in general. So yeah, I definitely think that I think that there might have been an unsaid gap of that, and you guys coming in, and Hatebreed as an example is a huge band that a lot of people were first listening to when they were getting into heavy music. So I think it was just a gap that you guys are kind of filling, which is really cool.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, I hope so. Like I said, like if you know me on a personal level, the vibe of the band is very just who I am, like I didn't want anything to feel like not genuine or forced. And
Sure.
previously in my old bands, like I didn't give a shit about lyrical content. Like I'd write stuff down and just be like, oh, that rhymes, that sounds cool. And
That's hard.
I'm a little bit older now. Yeah, I'm a little older now, and I've been through some stuff now. And I was like, you know what? If I'm going to be putting my words out there, I want them to, mean something to me, not to anybody else. If somebody else can resonate with it, that's awesome. But it was the first time where I was like, I'm just doing this for me. And I think if people do stuff for themselves in life more, I think the outcome will be a lot greater than when people are trying to do something that they think something else wants.
Yeah. Well, especially when the song is a minute 20, like you want your words to count. You don't want any one word to really just be like, oh, this is just to get me to the actual like killer line that I wrote. Like you want everything to be like at the same standard. So that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure.
Is there any specific lyrics or just song themes that you're like most proud of, or have gotten the most messages about since this release dropped?
I mean, it's still fairly new, and a lot of it has. I mean, there's definitely been some people on like the Instagram page that have messaged and mentioned something about the last track, "Hope at the Bottom," which I thought was really cool. I'm not going to expose him. I don't think it's a bad thing by any means, but he had reached out and he said, I've needed to hear a song like "Hope at the Bottom" for a while. And that was really cool to me because the song's actually about my son, and it's about just feeling like you're on your last leg, and you're just below anywhere mentally you thought you'd ever be. And it's about finding that one thing that makes you want to keep going. And for me, that's my son. And I guess that person resonated with it because he's an expecting dad. And I thought it was really cool. It's hard for me to get my mind past like everything just being funny or like a joke, because that's just who I've been for a long time. But
sure.
Especially like with bands, like I've just never really taken it all that serious. But just getting a small message like that, like I thought it was awesome. Like I said, we're not changing lives. No, I don't really think any band is writing music and they're like, I want this to change somebody's life. But it just someone picking something out and being like, that means something to me. Like that's pretty sure that's why we're all here right now.
Yeah,
because we've all had a lyric or something that we've grabbed onto and held on to it. So I think that's an awesome compliment.
Yeah, I don't think I would say 99% of hardcore vocalists or metal vocalists aren't writing lines being like, it's time to save some lives. They're just writing stuff that's like personal to them, and then it's just the trickle down effect that just like real like you brought up Have Heart as like an early influence like that. I know those songs have influenced so many people on very like micro and macro levels as far as mental health is concerned. So that's very, it's crazy, honestly, just the impact that, something that you wrote while you were on the toilet, like, oh yeah, this is a kind of cool line, and you kind of work that out, is actually like really influential to someone in a critical time. So that's very, very interesting.
Yeah, totally. And I want it to be an extension of, like I said, just who I am as a person. Like I'm the type of dude that I'm the guy that's like, let's talk about our feelings. Like, even if I don't know you very well, like there was some kid on Facebook recently that I haven't talked to in 12 years, whose mom had just passed away. And he said he like checked himself into rehab. And when I was up in New York, I visited him because I just think, especially in a time like now, where like everyone's isolated, and I've been dealing with that kind of isolation ever since I moved down here, just being taken away from most of my family and friends. Like, just a simple fucking conversation to somebody, even just like a, hey man, like a genuine, how are you? Right. Not some bullshit like Instagram DM. Like, actually, everyone always talks about like when people commit suicide, everyone's always like, I should have done this, I should have done that. And I'm so conscious of that I'm the dude that like, if I think of someone, I'm just like, hey man, how you doing? You want to hop on the phone? Like let's just talk.
Yeah.
And I think I think it's getting a lot better now, but I hate that there's almost this stigma around like being too cool to talk about your feelings, because
definitely
it's in the lowest points of my life, like a simple phone call with a friend has like made such a difference in, you know, the state of my mind. So I think, I think hopefully people can pick up on that. And, you know, I think as time goes on and we're learning more and more about ourselves and just the world through this pandemic, that people can just ask each other how they're feeling more and talk about their fucking feelings and not be so closed off.
Yeah, and I think that there is a weird thing where people are overanalyzing how they're coming off to certain people. They're like, "Oh, I can't keep just messaging this person because I'm being left on red," and there's these mind games that come into play. But I've been trying to practice, especially during this time, is like if I think about someone in like any kind of capacity, like I see like a fucking like cheap beer, and then I think of my friend Caleb, and like just messaging him, be like, "Hey, I saw this, thinking of you." That alone could be the interruption to something in someone's life that they really need just to hear from a friend, and then that triggers the next event of them responding, maybe giving a call and be like, "Yo, I actually like really need to chat with someone right now," because you know, like I'm a big believer in social media. Is like the fact that we're doing this podcast and being able to talk about these things is like that is a blessing. But there is a lot of things where people will get turned off to like just reaching out because it's like, oh, well, what is so and so gonna think of me if I'm like pestering them on the DMs? Like, you know, I think you're totally right. Like we need to just, you know, normalize being able just to be like, yo, like I'm having a great day. I'm trying to put some positive energy out into the world. Or on the flip side, I really need some support from my homies or some friends or just anyone to talk to. And knowing those resources is crucial.
Yeah. And I love that shit, man. Like if I hop on Instagram, I don't want to see my friend posting like some sad, dark lyric with like a selfie. Like if you want to do that, that's cool. And if you're my friend, I'll probably like it and go about my day. But I'd much rather see like someone posting about like an accomplishment, and not bragging about what someone's doing in their life per se, but just, you know, like caring about themselves or other people, or just because, you know, life, it's too fucking short to act, you know, too closed off or like you're too cool. Like, for instance, just 2 days ago, Izzy from Riot Stairs had passed away, and he is a collective, I mean, great friend of pretty much everyone in this band. It definitely hit us hard. Anyone in the Carolinas, North South Carolina, or even the Southeast for that matter, like he touched a lot of people, and it devastated a lot of people. And a week and a half prior, I had to hit him up, and I haven't seen him in probably March of last year. I booked them on a show here, and we were hanging out, but I hadn't talked to him. It's just, you know, life happens. You don't talk to people all the time.
For sure.
And I reached out. It was his birthday, and he was telling me about the Riot Stairs LP, and he was asking me if I could help them in some capacity. And it wasn't anything crazy, but we just caught up. And because I had decided to just reach out, I didn't, for some reason, I didn't have him on Instagram. So I reached out, and now he's gone. That was a week and a half ago. And like, he's not here, you know? And I'm glad I reached out because, you know, now I can look back and at least be like, man, well, we had a great conversation a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, you know what I mean? And it's like, that could be anyone at any fucking time.
Yeah.
And, you know, I don't think anything good comes out of anybody dying. But I think when something like that happens, like all of my friends and I, if we spoke about him 2 days ago, every single one of my friends, the exchange ended with, "I love you, man," you know? And I think that's one positive that you can take from such a terrible, terrible, terrible thing, is like, it puts things into perspective, and it makes you kind of open up a little more and be like, fuck, man, like, I really care about you. So
yeah, I feel like, and I'm really sorry for your loss. With his name is Easy, and Izzy, and his band is Riot Stairs.
Izzy Riot Stairs, and he played in Discourse.
Oh, okay.
Before that
yeah,
band.
yeah. I I think everyone in hardcore has experienced losing someone in their scene unexpectedly, and as shitty as that is, it's it's really, it puts things into perspective. And anytime that I see it through someone else that maybe I don't know the person who passed away, it's always like, tell your friends you love them. And that's like very easy to say in a Instagram post, but I think, you know, I highly encourage anyone listening, anyone watching this, to like, even if it's someone that you haven't talked to in like since the last hardcore show, or, you know, multiple years before that, like even just sending a voicemail and be like, hey man, I was listening to this podcast and it made me think of you for whatever reason. You know, there's multiple reasons, you know, good, bad, or ugly. And just like, hey, I wanted to say that I care about you, or I'm thinking about you, and I hope things are going well. Like, those, taking 30 seconds of your day to do that can really propel someone to hopefully be around for like hopefully longer. And if their life comes shorter than expected, at least that you said that is key. It's key. I think back to the people that I've lost who were involved in heavy music, and the either things that maybe I didn't have the chance to say, and the wishing like to be able to express to that person how much they mean to me, how much they inspired me, or this, that, or the other. So yeah, that's a huge point. Huge point.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that a lot of times it takes people losing people to see just how fucking cool they were, just how great something they did was. So I think it's good to just stay conscious of that throughout every day, as just a reminder, like, hey, the people that you have in your life, or everything you have in your life, like, and like you said, it's hard, you know, it's hard. It's a practice. It's
Right.
like you have to actually be mindful of it and remind yourself, like a lot of things in life. But I think it's really life-changing once you can do that, especially when maybe you're going through a time in your life where you don't really want to fucking be here, you know? And then it's just like a bad mental health day. When you have a good day, it's like you appreciate it so much. And so much of us forget that it's like, we're not going to fucking be here one day, you know? So love yourself and tell somebody else you fucking love them, because when I'm gone, all I hope is that my friends and family know that I fucking cared about them, and I had a few people in my corner that felt the same about me. I mean, that's, I feel like, all anybody could ask for.
Yeah. I saw a TikTok earlier this morning, and like it was about something else, but I want to tie it to this. And it was someone saying, if I see something that needs to be done and I know that it's going to take less than 60 seconds to do, I do it. So that's anything from like, you leave your jacket on the couch. You're like, yeah, it takes less than 60 seconds to put that in the closet, or like make the bed or something like that. But I think that same thing applies to this. Is like, if you spent 60 seconds, even just to message one person, quick little voice memo, send it out, no critiquing yourself, just boof. Like that, like even if like 100 people who listen to this podcast did that, like, so like that would make so many people's day, and potentially affect someone in a way bigger way that neither of us could have anticipated. So I think there needs to be, I'm a hard echo everything you're saying, as far as there just needs to be more of like, yeah, you see your friends at the show and everyone goes hard and, you know, posts the selfie with the lyric, but we need to just be like more in people's, not in their business, but like be more in their face of like, hey, it's okay to tell me if you're not okay.
Yeah. Like I've actually been experimenting with that recently, where I feel like a lot of times when people say hello to each other, it's a copy. It's not genuine. And I don't mean that like people are fake. I just mean when you say, hey, how's it going, man? I'm good. How are you? It's just a response.
Right.
But it's like,
it's a reaction.
So recently recently when people ask me, I've been honest, like, you know, and it's not to get pity or anything like that. It's just to be like, well, you asked how I'm doing. Like, well, some days the answer is like pretty fucking shitty, man. Like, how are you?
Right.
You know, and it's interesting to see how people respond, because it's like, oh shit, like what's going on? And it's like, cool, this is how you have an actual conversation, not just, hey man, how's it going? Good, how are you? Cool, all right, see you later. It's like, we didn't even need to have that conversation.
Right.
You know, if we're not going to really talk, we might as well not.
I actually had a, you know, are you cool with chatting about your son? Because I see that you've posted about him a number of times.
Of course.
Yeah, so your son Carter, I saw this you have a highlight on your Instagram, and there's a Dorito incident in the bathroom. Do you mind sharing that story? Because
Yeah.
I was just like burst out laughing when I saw it.
Yeah, he's insane. I just had a bag of Doritos in the bedroom. I put him in the bathtub. Just normal things. You put your son in the bathtub. I left the room for like I went to pee, so I don't know, 15 seconds, and I came back, and the entire tub was orange, and he was just eating Doritos. And I mean, that's things like that happen constantly,
Right.
and it just gets to a point where like your instinct, like you want to be mad, but it's like you can't be mad. You just have to laugh. It's definitely sucks to like clean up, but the memories are always hilarious, and it's a good time. He keeps life exciting for sure.
Right. So I want to break this down a little bit. So you had a bag of Doritos that you were enjoying, and then did they just land on the counter and you forgot about them, or how did they make their way into the bathroom?
Oh, God. Okay. No, so the Doritos were sitting on like the TV stand because we were eating them like earlier in the day.
Okay. Yeah.
So as I leave to go to the bathroom, he had hopped out, I guess, grabbed the bag of Doritos, and then back into the bathtub. Yeah, I did not give him the Doritos in the bathtub.
Well, yeah, I was confused. I was like who eats like Doritos and then leaves them? But it was like he just hopped out, just dripping water, grabbed it.
Yep. Yes. Yeah.
That's hilarious. That's way better than I would have thought of.
Yeah. He leaves the bathtub often and grabs things, but that was the only time it was a bag of Doritos.
What else has he grabbed while he's just in mid-bath?
Anything. He's a toddler, but he also has like a sensory processing disorder. So he loves holding things. Like when I bring him into preschool, he grabs a stick or a leaf, or when we leave the house, he grabs like a toy. So he just loves holding it. So sometimes he'll be in the bath and he'll just run his naked ass out, dripping wet, and he'll grab like a book. And then like he took one of my brand new books and just like threw it in the bath the other day. It was just like ripping it apart. Just anything he could get his hands on. He's taken my phone into the bath and thrown it in there.
That's
my wallet. He just usually makes like a soup in the bath and just throws a bunch of random crap in there.
Everything needs to have a waterproof ceiling of some sort.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's true.
Yeah, but maybe to tie that piece to what we were chatting about before, like I think everyone needs to have that like that north star for them when there are the times of, really hard days, really hard weeks, really hard months, and having the why of like, I can't leave this earth because I need to be here for this dog, this child,
straight up,
this thing that I'm working on, my partner, whatever it is. So yeah, and I don't know that varies for person to person, but I've heard that a number of times of people being like this dog is the reason that I'm still here, or this person is the reason I'm still here. So yeah, and some people don't have that. So going back to what we said, we need to have the outward influences if someone doesn't have that why in the same household.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it could be anything for anybody. I mean, I think it could be a band. I think it could be a passion. I think it could be, someone else. But yeah, I mean, if he wasn't around, like I don't know where the fuck I'd be, because it's weird because prior to him, life was a lot less stressful. My life was just one big vacation. I could do whatever the fuck I wanted. So since he's been here, life has been 20 times harder, but it's also been 20 times more rewarding. And there's been, parts of life that I didn't even know existed. But unfortunately, since he's been alive, I've definitely reached some of the lowest points. Not that it's his fault. It's just, like the timeline of how things have gone. But 100%, if he was not here, like I don't know what I would have done. So yeah, feel you on the North Star shit for sure. Everybody needs that.
Yeah, yeah. Everyone needs something to be like, okay, I'm working towards this, and like we were saying before, just having your homies check in on you, or even just people in general, like this isn't the movies where, you know, you're walking down the street and someone's like, hey, are you okay, and that person saves you or anything. Like, we need to be intentional about doing those kind of things.
Absolutely.
Another thing, and again, this goes back to the beginning when I was surprised. I was like, yeah, I'm down to chat about the band, but obviously you're very involved in, you know, the music community as far as working with Good Fight and State of Mind. You know, you sent me a very hefty list of bands that you've. I don't know if they're all current, or, you know, some are current, some are past. Do you mind if I read them off for the people?
Yeah, they're all current bands I work with. Some of them I just book, but most of them I just manage. But all those bands I currently work with.
Yeah. So on the list that James sent me was I always never know how to pronounce his band. Sugabog.
Sanguis Sugabog. Yeah.
Sanguis Sugabog. Also
Yep.
on the list is Frozen Soul, See You Space Cowboy, Chamber, Vatican, Judiciary, Drain, Life's Question, Magnitude, and Creeping Death. So when you said that, I was like, that's like, I listened to like majority of those bands on the regular. So I was like, okay, I'm talking to someone very important here. So I'm excited to be doing that. So, you know, just tell me on how you got into doing that. Or I don't know if you're like, I'm not I'm sure there's a number of different people who work at Good Fight and State of Mind, but, you know, bring me up to speed on some of those things, and how that, you know, you got situated into doing that.
For sure. Well, basically, it all came back to, like I had mentioned, when I found out I was going to be a dad, I kind of wrapped up my old band, Detriment. We did a last tour, and pretty much as soon as I got home from that tour was when I officially had moved to North Carolina. So we're talking like about 4 years ago now. I had no money to my name, much like the majority of my life. I never had a fucking plan, but I was like, shit, I'm going to be a dad. So I started working some like labor job down here, the typical like North Carolina thing to do. I mean, I was driving a fucking tractor. Like, it was ridiculous. It was so not at all what I should be doing in life, but, you know,
Sure.
I needed money. And I kind of was just like, I want to be involved with something music, but I just wasn't sure what. And because I had toured a lot previously with my old band, and I started to like tour manage and stuff, and I was just the dude that like I would just hop in the van randomly with random bands and just go on tour whenever. People kind of just started like asking me here and there, like, hey, do you know who books in this place? Or, hey, do you know where I could get a show in fucking Iowa or something? And then I kind of just started hitting up my friends like, yo, if you need help booking a small tour, just hit me up and I'll do it. And so that's kind of what I started doing, just alone. And then I did a tour for Sanction in Vain. It was the Summer of Fear tour in 2000, I guess 18, I think.
Okay.
And after that, my buddy Josh, who runs State of Mind, hit me up, and he was like, he's been, I don't know if you know Josh White, been a great friend of mine for a bunch of years. And he was just like, dude, like, if you're booking tours, just come work with me at State of Mind and I'll kind of show you the ropes. Because I didn't know what I was doing other than like, I would just book the shows,
Sure.
put a list together of the shows and like send it to me. Like, I wasn't doing things the right way. So he brought me on, and that was kind of my first, you know, real experience with like doing it legitimately. And then I want to say like a year or two into that, some of the bands that I was booking started getting like some label interest. And because I was already working with them, I just sort of fell into the management position. Like, I remember Creeping Death and Sea Space Cowboy kind of at the same time were getting like deals, and they were like, yo, can you like help us with this?
Mm-hmm.
So I was managing by myself for about a year, and then James Vitalo, who's my partner, he sang in Backtrack, but now he manages bands.
Right.
He hit me up and he's like, "Yo, you're doing cool stuff with these bands. Why don't you come work a Good Fight and manage bands?" And Good Fight's pretty much just like a collective of different artist managers that just share, thoughts and ideas and an email address.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, now we're here.
Yeah, no, and a lot of those things are really, really interesting. I'm confident that a number of people listening to this podcast are, in a band, and there's probably a good majority that maybe don't have a manager per se. So I kind of I'm thinking about how to give them as much value as possible. And there's a number of bands at different scales that are, like we can do everything ourselves, purely DIY. But from your experience doing this for as long as you've had, like what's the biggest pro to having someone maybe on that back end side that's helping you set up certain things, whether it's a tour or just like, oh, this label is interested, this is how we should approach that. And maybe the next question that we can hit on is like, what's the best way to approach someone like State of Mind as far as doing that? Because I'm sure State of Mind or Good Fight on the regular gets a number of emails being like, hey, we're a band from here and this is our blah blah blah. So talk to me about what are the pros, and then we'll get into potentially how to properly pitch yourself.
Yeah, cool. I would say, especially from experience, I think the biggest. Well, are you talking about both booking agent and manager, or just?
Whichever you think is you feel like you can talk best on, I guess.
Yeah, well, I think booking agent is a little more self-explanatory. I mean, you're booking bands tours for someone. You are seeking opportunities. That's all you do. So management, I think the biggest pro is, for instance, my band got signed to a label when we were on tour in Germany in 2015 with a fucking handshake. And because of that mistake, we suffered from things being done wrong. And if we would have had a manager, not that we needed one, but if we would have had a manager, I probably would have called and been like, hey, dude, some guy in Germany is like asking me to put out our record. Like, what should I do? So I think the biggest benefit from a manager is just you have someone to fall back on before you make a mistake.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And most likely when you go to that person, it's obviously everyone is human. We can all make mistakes, but your chances of fucking up an opportunity are slimmer, like a lot of times bands, they get attention from a label and they just say yes, much like we did. And then you get a shit deal and you don't know what the fuck you did. And things are really messed up, and you could have done things, you could have called your manager and been like, okay, let's get a lawyer. Let's make sure this is done right. Let's, maybe even just say no to this person. I think that's probably the biggest gain. And also it's an extension of the band that can see things more objectively.
Sure.
Like I'm not personally in these bands, but I'm very much a part of the team. And when you're in bands, I feel like there's a lot of personal, like it's easy to get offended when someone has like a different idea. But I think when someone can look at it from the outside and be like, hey man, I don't think this works because of this, I think it's easier for somebody to digest, because it's like this person is just solely looking out for the band's best interests, not for his own personal, gain or stuff like that. So from my experience, I think it's definitely, I've seen, especially my bands always say, it's nice just having someone else put their opinion in. It's nice having somebody like, hey, do this shit because I don't know what the hell I'm doing. So please just take this load off of my hands.
Sure. Has there ever been a time where like you've needed to swoop in, not like to call the band out or anything like that, but has there ever been a time where you've gotten like the 1 a.m. call and you're like, oh my gosh, James, I don't know what to do in this situation, and you had to like troubleshoot to, save a record deal or figure out a pre-order drop or anything like that come to mind?
Oh yeah, I mean, that's pretty much the name of the game here. I mean,
Sure.
we're always putting out some type of fire. Like, I mean, there's been everything from like people getting canceled to people getting accused of things and having to deal with the shit that brings, or the record label putting out the wrong single, a certain pre-order link not being live. Like, that's pretty much the job. It can be rough, but like, I'd much rather be dealing with any sort of bullshit with something I care about than like working at a Home Depot. No disrespect to Home Depot, but like, or anyone that works there. But if I just don't feel passionate about something, like, I personally don't think I could do anything else besides work with music.
Right.
So I'm very grateful that it was able to work out. But
yeah,
you
would rather put out a fire about something music related versus like, oh, like, hey, James, someone shit in one of the Home Depot toilets. Like, what do we do?
Yeah. I mean, I clean shit up daily for free, but I'm not cleaning somebody else's shit for any amount of money unless he's named Carson.
Yeah, that's right.
No. What was the second question? Was that the second question?
No, the second question was
wasn't that a two-part question?
Yeah, well, I should have asked it in two, but yeah, the second thing was, I think you've explained as far as like the benefits of having someone who's maybe not as emotionally invested, but is still seeking out the best interests for the band. Because obviously you talk with like the goals that a band like Vatican and Drain, who are on opposite sides of the country, are going to be very different. There's going to be a lot of crossover, I'm sure, but it's like, we want to do this, and this band wants to do a version of this, but this way, because maybe the band is older, or a multitude of different reasons. But the second part question was just like, if there's a band that wants to inquire with management, or have someone to do that, like, I'm sure you guys get lots of messages, and I don't mean to bring this up to be like, go and message these guys, but I do think it would be really valuable to any band of any level to be like, if you are wanting to make this, like, who is the person that A, maybe you want to be messaging or reaching out to you guys, and B, how should they pitch themselves in that way?
Gotcha. Well, you would think I would get a lot of messages like that, and I used to, but so I made a new Instagram this past October, and one of the reasons I did was because once I had a kid, I just kind of was like, I don't need all of these strangers, just kind of like seeing my family stuff. And I just kind of felt like maybe people didn't want to be seeing that, like I met a lot of people through touring and stuff. And then it got to a point where all I was posting now was this kid. And I was almost like, I just wanted to start fresh, but I don't really post too much about like work stuff. And there's a ton of people that don't even know what I do, which I think is awesome. Like, there's tons of people that I'm even friends with that are like, what do you do? Like, what are you doing for work? So I don't get as much people hitting me up as you might think. That might change once like things come back.
Sure.
But especially the last like year, I don't think really anybody. But for management, I would say every single band I manage has been, I booked them first, and then it got to a point where it was like clearly they needed a manager, and most of the time that meant a deal was coming in, or they were just so hot that they were just biting off more than they could chew, and I kind of stepped into that role. But I think for somebody asking themselves like, do we need a manager, I think if you're asking yourself that question, that's kind of your answer. I think it gets to a natural point of like, I don't know how to handle this situation, or like you're getting opportunities that are just beyond what you're able to understand.
Sure.
I think if you're just waking up and you're like, I think we might need a manager because I think it will bring us more opportunities, I don't think that's the time. I think
things are
most
out
of the time
order in that way. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, like if there's record labels knocking on your door, like it's probably time to to talk to somebody.
Sure.
You know, if you're just sitting around and you just want to like learn a little bit more, it's probably not the time to get a manager. And like I said, every single band I managed was people were trying to sign them. They didn't know how to go about it. I was the only person in their corner that was working with them at all. So it naturally wound up working that way.
Yeah. No, I think that's really good. And I think we hit on that exactly how I wanted to. And I think it's very clear. Like, I think it's great to have people in certain positions of experience to ask them these kind of questions. But clearly it's like if you aren't self-aware enough to know like whether your band is like a hot ticket item or like trying to view it as like I get manager and then I get record like things are out of order in that manner. So yeah, I think that's broken
and
down.
Sometimes that does happen. But I think if you're just sitting around wondering why certain things aren't happening for you, it's very unlikely that just because a manager comes in, all of a sudden these opportunities are going to come.
Right.
You know? So I think that's the short answer there. But also, what was I going to say? Damn it. I just lost my train of thought.
No,
I'm
that's
sorry.
fine.
That might come.
Yeah. If it comes back, yeah, feel free to interrupt.
Cool.
Yeah, I do think, I think that there needs to be like out of curiosity, like what do you think is the most common way that maybe a band is coming onto your radar? Like, is it through like some band plays a live set at This Is Hardcore or LDB Fest and you see a set of that and you're like, oh yeah, like people are going crazy for this band? Or is it like things on Twitter are blowing up about a certain demo that was dropped or a merch item that is absolutely Looney Tune and it sells out in 30 seconds? Like what right now or maybe overall is the most common way that a band is catching your eye?
Well, for me, it was always like through a mutual friend or like I've been on the ground with these people, you know, like I'm not sitting in an office with a suit. I'm not, you know, taking big meetings with big corporate companies. Like I'm just a hardcore dude, the same age as most of these people. It just so happens like I sit at a desk more than they might, and I deal with some shit that they might not want to deal with. But There's actually the first band I started to manage was See You Space Cowboy, and that was the only band that, like you said, I just saw a video of them and I was just kind of blown away. And they were the only band that I work with that I didn't have any mutual friends with. But I saw a video of them playing in California. We've been working together. Like I said, they were like my first band that I started managing. We've been working together a little over about 3 years now. And I saw a video and I just emailed them and I think I said like, hey, you guys should call me. Like, let's just get on the phone and talk. And that's the only band that I saw and I was just like, what the fuck is this? Like I need to know what this is. And I think other people need to know what this is. And the first few months of working with that band was like telling people like, yo, check out this band. Everybody would be like, ugh, like, no, that's weird. Like what's going on? And then eventually people started to catch on. I think for the most part now they've, people have given them a fair chance and they seem to be, doing fairly well. But most of the time it's just been just kind of mutual friends asking around. Like the Creeping Death guys, we started working together because at the time I was working with Breaking Wheel and they were on a tour with them. And then I was just like, man, these guys are awesome. Like we should start working together. So the Breaking Wheel guys put me in contact with them. Drain is actually the only band I work with that reached out to me.
Okay. Got you.
Yeah. So I remember they emailed me like 2 years ago and I had met Sammy in passing when my old band played with, I think he was playing with another band at the time. I think it was, I don't know. I don't want to say, and then he yells at me like, dude, you got the fucking band name now. But he emailed me about 2 years ago and was like, I'd love to work with you. And it's crazy to think about now, but I remember like 2 years ago, I'd be putting them on like small shows here and there, and people would be like, who the fuck is this band?
Right.
Like, okay, I guess I'll do the show for them. And then they'd play a show, and then they'd be calling me like, dude, who the fuck is that band? Like,
Right.
what the hell was that?
Yeah.
But yeah, they're the only band that had actually hit me up. And then every other band, like I said, pretty much like a mutual friend or some type of connection where it's like, oh yeah, I know you because this person met you, and that person, you know, vouched for you, and that has always definitely worked to my advantage. That I haven't been just, like I said, some guy wearing a suit sitting in an office like, hey, come have a meeting with me and let's work together. It's like, oh, this dude is just one of us.
Yeah, I think, you know, going back to one of the earlier things you were saying on this matter, like just showing up and having that one small little moment of working together, whether it's playing a show in North Carolina, New York, wherever it is, like that can actually do numbers. Like, and some of it is unexpected. Like, I'm sure See You Space Cowboy didn't take that show that was being filmed by either 197 Media or whoever it was, and wasn't thinking, oh, this is going to be viewed by someone who's going to be our manager one day. Like some things in hardcore or just music industry things in general are serendipitous, where you do one thing and it catches the eye of so and so, and then it's an unexpected chain reaction effect, versus trying to be super calculated.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's why a lot of people always ask me like, oh, how do I get into this? Or how did you do this? And it's like, the thing is, I wasn't trying, you know, like at the time, like when I was touring all over the place, that was with my own band. Some days, you know, we never really amounted to anything, and we toured a whole lot, but I didn't think I was setting myself up for anything. I was just like, I want to tour the world with my friends. And that's exactly what I did. But like you're saying, it did help, because I remember, you know, when I'd hit up certain bands, like, oh shit, we played a show together in California 3 years ago. Or like when I first talked to Sanguisugabog, like, oh yeah, we actually met you because you played a show with our drummer in Columbus, Ohio 5 years ago. So it's like, I definitely was not planting seeds then. I was just living my life and touring with the band. But yes, you know, naturally that wound up being kind of how I got here, because, you know, me personally, and I'm sure like most kids in a hardcore band, like if some random ass dude just hit them up and they have no connection to this person whatsoever, like where's the connection?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's going to be such a disconnect that they're just going to be like, fuck this, I don't want any of that.
Right.
So, and I think I'm glad that this also has like a video portion, because I would hate for somebody to think that my entity is just like some manager guy, because it's just not.
For the audio listeners,
you know what I mean?
James is rocking like the obituary shirt in jeans. Like managers aren't just this like Google image search corporate guy with the suit and tie. Right. And I'm sure most people at any management, booking agency, I'm sure even most like hardcore record labels, like no one's coming to work in a suit and tie. Not like there's anything wrong with that if you want to be the best dressed of the office, but you know, like people are pretty chill for the most part.
And I think I know it's there for a reason, but I hate the name of it too, because I think it gives people this weird idea that you're doing something that's like just bigger than what you are. And it's like, I just wish there was another name for it, because it sounds so above something else, but it's just not. It's like I'm doing the same shit I was as a booking agent, just on a different level. I'm just helping bands I care about, you know, get to places they want to be that they might not have the resources or fucking attention span to do so.
Sure, definitely. James, a couple more questions before we wrap up. I have to ask, with the number of bands that you've landed as far as being able to work with, is there any bands that were the one that got away, where something didn't go right and you're still like, man, I could have been working with this band and doing this? Are there any bands that got away from you?
No, I mean, I probably because I've never bitten off more than I could chew. Like I've had the same roster for the last I guess like 2 years minus like 2 bands, but I've, there's a lot that goes into it. So I've never tried to put too much on my plate, but I've pretty much every line I've casted, I've caught, and I'm super grateful for that. I think the only band that I reached out to that I was a bit too late was when that Static Dress band had first popped up. I hit them up. They're over in another country, and I had no mutual friends with them whatsoever. But I just called them. We had a great conversation, and I was basically just like, "You guys are fucking great, and I'd love to talk." And one of my good friends books them now, and they're doing awesome things. And yes, that's probably the only one. I definitely don't think they're a great band, but I'm not sitting over here like upset that I'm not working with them, But that's because they're gonna do amazing things regardless of who they work for. And I'm like a fan first and foremost of all the bands that I work with. So it's not like, if you're not working with me, I don't like you. It's like, no, that's cool.
You
just
don't work with it? Well, fuck your band. Like none of that is being said. Yeah.
No. Yeah. So that's, I think, the only band that I've reached out to that didn't work out. But yeah, that band's fucking killing it. And I hope we can, some of our bands will do stuff together. So it's a win-win no matter what.
Yeah, I think if the end goal is to be the best manager or, person that is, trying to grant opportunities and seek out those for a band, you clearly sound like you're stoked for the person that did land that. And, that's been times where it's like, if I can't do something, the next best thing is making sure that it's in good hands with someone else. Versus, if it's, I don't think once you're connected enough, you're like, I know, Billy Joe is going to be able to handle this as best as I could. So no, it sounds like, they're in good hands. And like you said, like, who knows, things change, you guys do something in the future. So again, that serendipity comes back into play. Well, James, this has been really, really fun. Big fan of Ends of Sanity, and a big fan of the posse chats that we had and everything in between there. The last portion of the podcast that I always ask my guests is a favorite Mosh story that they would like to share. So that doesn't need to necessarily be something that happened to you. It could be something that you saw at a show, one of your old band's show, whatever's the first thing to your mind is kind of how we end off.
Oh, there's so many that I'm like flipping through my head right now.
Yeah, they come in waves.
Yeah, because there's some that are maybe not appropriate. There's some that are just way out there, and then there's some that, like, I don't even know if I can keep my composure. But oh man. So it can just be anything Mosh related?
Anything Mosh related or show related. There's really no rules. It's just trying to tee up like some kind of crazy show Mosh related story.
Okay. I'm going to have to go with this one. So I was on tour with my old band and we were playing in Alabama. And it's one of those things that's like, I could tell the story, but you won't be able to really capture how insane it was unless you were there.
Sure.
But Alabama's kind of a weird fucking place. I mean, especially for hardcore. I've always had great experiences there, but it's always also been one of those things where it's like, man, we're in Alabama. Like this is just kind of wild. Like what are we doing in Alabama?
Sure.
And we were playing at this place that was like a storage unit with a DIY stage. And I don't know what the fuck happened still to this day, but we were playing and next thing you know, there's just a pile up of people on the floor, like beating the living shit out of each other. And there's probably only like 60 kids at the show to begin with, because that's all you could fit. And there's probably more than half the show guys and girls, like beating the shit out of each other. There's like a dog pile of people, and one of the people at the bottom of this dog pile, I think it was a girl, I'm pretty sure it was, just like grabbed the microphone from me out of my hands and just starts like screaming at the other person that I guess caused this fight. and they were just like having a screaming match with the microphone that I was using
while you guys are playing.
Yeah, like we didn't stop playing. I was just standing there very confused as everybody else was. We never stopped playing. And then everybody just kind of went on with their night as if nothing had happened. I think there was like maybe a pause for a second or two and people had some words, but I think the wildest part was like, there was definitely like girls punching dudes and like dudes. I don't think dudes were punching girls, but there was definitely a lot of hands being tossed around. And
Sure.
I don't know. It was insane. I'm really hoping this was a few years ago and not a lot of people were at that show, but I'm hoping this gets around and someone can watch or listen to this, be like, I was there and I know what happened. I don't really give a shit what happened. It was just hilarious. And I've never in my life seen someone take the microphone during a fight to like talk over the band.
That seems very like wrestler, like, you know, the announcer is saying something and grabbing. It's like, you know, you blah, blah, blah. So that's crazy.
Yeah.
That just mid song.
And the promoter the promoter had bought a bunch of Little Caesars pizza, which was being thrown around everywhere. Wow.
What? That's a layer of the story that you should have brought in as well.
It's coming back.
It's coming back.
This is about 5 years ago.
There's a pile of people and just pizzas going everywhere. You know, pepperoni stuck to the wall. And a girl at the bottom of it just screaming.
Scene. Yeah.
That's crazy. I hope that there's someone who's listening to this who has some cell phone video or something to share. That would be unreal.
I'm sure.
I'm sure it's out there somewhere. Well, James, again, this has been a blast. All of your handles and all the stuff that you're involved in, Ends of Sanity, Bandcamp will be in the description of the video. But if there's anything that you want to plug or send the people off with, the floor is yours.
Cool. Ends of Sanity. I think it's just at Ends of Sanity on Instagram. My Instagram is private, but it's James X Aloisio. If you can say that right, I'll give you $5. And I just want to wish my buddy Ian Gilchrist well. He's fallen ill recently, and I just want to wish him well. So anybody else that's listening to this, send him some support because he needs it.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. Highly recommend anyone who's into, heavy metallic hardcore, check out Ends of Sanity. I don't say it just because you're on the podcast. I really think that that's going to be in my top for EPs of this 2021. And really appreciate you coming on the podcast, James. This has been a blast.
Yeah, man, same. And it's a really cool thing that you're doing. So I'm stoked we got to talk.
Yeah, me as well.